What's up, Trojans? I don't even know what I just watched. Man, like, I'm watching the first half of this game. I'm like, all right, I see the issues here. The team is not gelling, right? Like, I'm watching this, and I'm like, all right, the defensive line gets a pressure, the secondary falls apart. The secondary is doing amazing. The defensive line gets no pressure whatsoever. So our defense is getting cut through like butter. Then, on offense, like, just things weren't connecting, right? It was kind of similar in that. Like, Jones would do something terrible when the offensive line and wide receivers looked like they were open. Then, if Jones was looking good, he'd try to force a pass to, like, an unopened wide receiver. And then, if the wide receivers were running good routes and Jones was about to do something good, the offensive line would fall apart. And, you know, only bad things happen when that happens, right? Like, think of the one play where Azudu got wrapped around and they were able to get Daniel Jones as he tried to make a run for it. Like, stuff like that was happening. And then you had, like, even just missed things, like real bad mess-ups. Like, Daniel Jones throwing it to Saquon Barkley. He drops it. It gets picked off. And they run it back a long ways, right? Like, it was just all that in the first half. This team could not figure it out. And then, like, and even toward the end of the first half, like, they were starting to do a little bit, right? Like, the first drive of the game, the Cardinals did it to themselves, and the Giants had no way to capitalize on it. That offense just was not cooking to start. So then they get the ball back, and what do the Cardinals do? They walk right down, they score. The defense, is back, and the Cardinals, they had like 200 yards in what felt like 2 seconds. Like, they instantly like showed the stats, and the Cardinals dominating time of possession and dominating in terms of yards. And it just looked like one of those games where even if the Giants could mount a comeback, our defense would get worn out. But then they go into halftime. And I don't know what Brian Daboll said to this team, but he said all the right things because they just walk out from halftime, bam, touchdown, 3-play drive, long pass to Jalen Hyatt, who was amazing. He made a bunch of good plays. The rookie wide receiver, he was epic, and just the team felt different. Now the defense, they didn't figure it out until later in the game, and I think that the offense had to cause that momentum shift. Basically, this team just looked different. It was a different team that walked out in the second half, thanks to what Brian Daboll said. And I don't know exactly what he said. That's the crazy part. I mean, that's probably going to be something for a post-game interview. Everyone's going to be asking that. Like, what'd you tell these guys? But one thing I noticed that a lot of people have pointed to already is it looked like Brian Daboll took a bigger role in play calling or was the guy calling the plays. I don't know, maybe he wasn't vetoing stuff as much because normally, like, they've asked about it, like, several times in the past. It was a whole thing last season. Like, oh, is Brian Daboll going to call plays because he used to, or is he going to let the offensive coordinator do it? He was letting the offensive coordinator just, I think, call plays nonstop, and only, the only input he'd have is, like, I want to go for it on fourth down. I want to do this 2-point thing, come up with a play. And he would just leave that to the offensive coordinator. He was stopped doing that because he had the playbook in his hand. He was, in between plays, they'd cut to him. He'd be talking. Normally, they just cut to Kafka, and Kafka's doing everything. And Kafka was still talking in between plays. So I don't know if they started doing a more collaborative effort or what happened there, but it worked. And the offense just kept going and going and going and just didn't stop. The offense was perfect in the second half. I don't think they got stopped in the second half, actually. And, the team was not terrible. I knew the team wasn't terrible. They just weren't connecting. That was the thing. That was the main thing I noticed in the first half. It's like, I can't point to an area on this team and be like, that is completely broken. Like, we knew a secondary, for example, might have some issues, starting some rookie corners. But you thought the defensive line would hold up the way the offense ended up having to for the Giants to win this game, right? Just pounding. But our defensive line just wasn't doing that. It was only doing just enough. And, because the offense just really motivated this team, then you had the secondary, the defensive line. They came to an understanding toward the end of the game, and they got the job done. I mean, once the Cardinals scored 28 points, They didn't score any more points. And yeah, it felt like the Giants' comeback hopes, even though the offense was starting to look good, were crushed when the Cardinals got 8 points on one drive to go up 28 points. But, you know, the offense just didn't back down, and that made the defense not back down. And we didn't have any special teams errors. Special teams was fine. Like, we cut down on errors, and we had some parts of this team that just started to look really good in the second half, and that's what the Giants have to do moving forward. Now, business beyond this game, Saquon got injured, unfortunately. He was walking around afterward and everything, so hopefully it's nothing too serious, but that because it's only 3 days away, no matter how minor the injury is, he's not playing in that game. So we don't have a Saquon Barkley that was hot in the second half. A little bit in the first half, aside from that one real mishap. But the second half, Saquon was not letting people tackle him. He had one play. He was dead to rights. That's like a 1 yard gain. You just fall over. He said no. He broke a tackle, spun out, and then just went. It was amazing to watch. Jones had some really good plays like that too. Running the ball. Jones had one play. He juked a guy. He didn't do a juke, but he changed direction so fast it acted as a juke, and then he just got a first down. He had another play where he did the same thing. He was running out of bounds and then just turned it inside and got 10 extra yards or whatever it was. Amazing stuff. Hard running was great. And then Jones, when he was throwing the ball in the second half, amazing. The long dime to Hyatt. Slayton got involved a lot in the second half too. Everything was just working, and Jones was a huge part of it. The offensive line, they hadn't been great, and they weren't even amazing in the second half, but they did enough. Aside from some annoying penalties, they did enough. And, they need more experience together. Thomas was out even. Overall, it ended up being a good performance from them. And yeah, the team just started working, and hopefully all this momentum can carry into Thursday. It's only 3 days away. That momentum should stay, and the team's able to figure out how to compete without Barkley. I'm not predicting a win, but, if the team plays like this, it's going to be a game. See you guys in the next one.